What's going on, everyone? It's Justin here, and today I've got a video of kind of a minimal living room inspiration, as well as some gameplay and review of the Xbox Series X and some of the games that are ready to play in the 4K 60 resolution, as well as what is to come. So we got a chance to check out the Xbox a little bit early, and I've had a lot of fun with it. We've been playing some of the latest games today, had some friends over to try it out as well, and I thought that we might as well get a little bit creative, and because my loft isn't ready, I found a loft that was very minimal, and we set it up to kind of a classic but also modern and clean living room to give some of you guys some ideas as to kind of a unique setup that goes quite well actually with next generation consoles. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and please smash that like button because I spent quite a bit of money on the space and a lot of time on this video, but I feel like the only way to do it is to go overkill because we make a lot of videos and I want to make them as interesting and fresh as possible, and this is kind of one of the reasons why I did it. So here we're taking a look at kind of the setup side of this video, and as you can probably see, it is one of those that is a bit unique and it definitely wouldn't work for everyone's setup, but I thought it'd be fun to try it anyways. This is actually the Samsung Serif TV, and it came out like a while ago, and I've always wanted to kind of check it out, and I've seen it in person a few times, but I just couldn't decide if it either looked really good as a minimal setup or it looked terrible. So I kept my eye on Amazon, and I happened to find one for about $1,000 off because it has this nice little crack on the corner, and it's been sitting in my parents' basement for like over a year, but this is like the perfect setup to bring it out. And in addition to like the minimal setup, I also had a couple pedestals made out of wood and just painted in white. So you could have like your controllers on this side, you could have your Xbox over here, and just sitting there letting it cool and everything. And for those who are asking about the Xbox's noise level, it is actually super quiet from what I've noticed. I literally can't hear it today, and that was something that I could notice in previous generation consoles such as the Xbox One and the PS4, where the fans really do kick in, but in this case I really haven't noticed or heard the fan at any point during a full 12 hours of gameplay. For a setup like this though, where everything is just like super clean and minimal and floating, the way to do it is just to kind of tuck your cables around the edge. You've got your HDMI and your power. When it comes to Netflix, everything is built into the smart system on the Samsung TV, and you can also hide a lot of those cables inside the box if you cut a hole in the back. And I think it actually looks pretty unique. So if you've got like a small apartment space and you don't want to make it feel constrained or anything with a big TV console with storage, then this, I guess, is a pretty good option. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, because it is definitely a little bit different. So on this side of the living room, there's like a nice space to be able to walk through, and the reason why I feel like it seems so open is because this type of couch doesn't have like a large side or large pieces of foam. Instead, it is all like one piece that is still very comfortable, but just keeps everything very open. And the same goes with the Samsung Serif TV, where you just have two legs and you can kind of see through to the back wall, with the TV having a bit of a floating effect. Right here is a dresser that looked like it was a different color before. So a lot of times if you go on Facebook Marketplace and find something that might not look that good, you can just paint it white or the same color as your wall. And with a few pieces of decor, it can really make it look good. With like this pot right here, you've got the candle and some fruit, and you can see that the color scheme is essentially white, brown, and green. And I think it all comes together really nicely. So now let's talk about the start of the show, the Xbox Series X. And as you can see, this kind of minimal setup theme has it sitting on this wood box that I had a buddy make. He just painted it white, and I feel like with these new consoles, they're a little bit awkward in terms of trying to fit it into your living room space, whether it's like putting it on the top. It's a little bit wide to fit into a cupboard. The PS5 is absolutely massive, so putting it on like a pedestal like this allows it to both breathe out of the top, but also just like really present it in its minimalism, and I think it looks really good. So aside from the looks, let's talk about the inside, and this console is meant to play in 4K 60. Almost all the games that are coming out are obviously going to be optimized for 4K 60. It is able to handle it just fine, but as a future-proof mechanism and as a console that is going to be the general for 6 to 7 years, it is also supported at 8K. But one of the questions that I got over on Instagram was whether it has HDMI 2.1 support, because HDMI 2.0 can only support up to 4K 60, which is what most TVs that you buy right now are going to have, aside from the highest end models that have HDMI 2.1. HDMI 2.1 is able to support up to 10K resolution. The TVs that you and me are going out to buy right now, even if it is like a very nice one, is probably not going to have support up to 8K or 10K with HDMI 2.1, and you're also not really going to need it. So if you've got like a TV from the past couple of years that can play 4K, HDR, you're all set to really take advantage of what the Xbox Series X is able to put out at its maximum resolution and frame rate today. Almost all the games that we tested out were in 4K 60 resolution, with the exception of a few that were able to play 4K 120. When it comes to the specs, this is an 8-core, 3.8 GHz CPU made by AMD, where 7 cores are used for gaming and 1 is used for the menus and UI. The GPU is a 12 teraflop system at around 1.8 GHz, and it also supports ray tracing, which has been one of the biggest talks of the next generation console to give you a next dimension of realism through reflections and lighting. The RAM is 16 gigs and is divided into 3 different categories, including 10 gigs of fast 560 gigabytes per second memory for GPU performance, 3.5 for standard, and also 2.5 for operating system. These include the resume feature, the game loading, and the menus, which are significantly faster than before. One of the common features of the Xbox Series X and also the PS5 is also the NVMe SSDs. And when the previous generation of PS4 and Xbox One came out, back then SSDs were still quite expensive. I remember it was like $1 or $2 per gigabyte. So those systems used regular hard drives with the option to expand in the future by installing an SSD. And that did improve the load times, but at the end of the day, the SATA was what was limiting the potential speed of an SSD. And with these next generation consoles, they all have NVMe, which is super fast and is a huge factor, along with like the RAM and the CPU allocation to give you fast load times and also multitasking features from switching between games and resuming right away. Controller-wise though, there really isn't a big difference. It looks the same, it feels for the most part the same. You have an extra button right here. It also has better connectivity to a degree, and you can also connect it to other devices, of course. But it is more so being like a refinement as opposed to an overhaul that Sony has done. And one of the most notable improvements is going to be the D-pad. So instead of being limited directionally to 4 angles, it is kind of more adaptive, and otherwise the controller still feels very comfortable, just like the previous gen. One thing though is I feel like they could have at least included the play and charge kit. That would have been nice, because in 2020, who wants to use AA batteries? But then again, you've got Apple, who doesn't even include the charging brick. So one of the first games that we tried out is Forza Horizon 6 for the Xbox Series X, and this is playable in 4K 60. And I feel like one of the first games that I always play on every new generation of Xbox is Forza. I did play that on the Xbox One and was absolutely blown away by the graphics, the McLaren P1 in that picture. And as someone who loves racing games and is also working on a Formula One simulator setup, this game just got me so excited because it is just so detailed. The graphics are amazing, and also the water and different terrains and everything. I feel like this really does showcase the features and capabilities of this next generation console. And Microsoft always does like an incredible job putting this together and optimizing it for the new console. You do have to be pretty good at racing games to be able to play this, and as someone who isn't really the best at it, I found that it was relatively hard to play, but in terms of graphics alone, it looked amazing. So going into some of the details and optimization, Horizon 4 has higher fidelity graphics, faster performance, as well as like the load times, and they say that it is similar to high-end gaming PC Ultra settings. It runs at a native 4K 60, and they promise better reflections, shadows, but it does not have ray tracing support just yet. Another game that I also had a lot of fun with is Dirt 5, and this is able to be played up to 4K at 120 frames per second, which is something that needs HDMI 2.1. And similar to Forza, this one really does take advantage of the next generation graphics because of all of like the textures, the mud, and all these details that you can just really notice super smooth, and with the amount of speed and dynamic changing and lighting and all that kind of stuff, as well as these 70+ maps that you can play at around the world. I just wanted to kind of like get a feel for it, and I found that compared to Forza, this one was actually much easier to play because the cars are much smaller, and just to get some control out of it, I found that as a beginner, this is a really good one to start with.
As you can probably see in this gameplay here, I absolutely choked.
Oh, no!
With Dirt 5 being one of the games that is optimized at launch and being able to reach 120 frames per second, one of the game modes that we also had a lot of fun playing was the 4-player split screen, and the graphics and frame rates and everything were very consistent, and it looked great on all windows as expected.
Gears 5 is also one of the games that we were able to try out, and this is another one where like the textures and the ray tracing also really came out. Like the reflections on the equipment and everything and the terrains. This is one that I had a friend demonstrate because my experience with games of this genre is definitely not as good as many people out there.
If you take a look at the optimized page on Xbox's website, some of the games will not be optimized just yet. One of them being Madden 21, which we had the chance to play on the console, but it isn't getting its optimized version until about the end of the year. It was still one that was a lot of fun to play, but in terms of the actual optimized title, it essentially gives you better graphics, ray tracing, maybe more detailed in the sets. It also gives you higher variable frame rates and also up to 120 frame per second support. But the optimization schedule upon release, as well as the titles that are coming up, are relatively limited, which is why the Xbox Series S actually looks like an incredible value, because those who go ahead and buy the Series X won't really be able to take full advantage of it just yet.
So at the end of the day, what do I think about the Xbox Series X? And I've got to say, I've had an incredible time with it, and from testing out some of the next generation games today and what is available at launch, I'm definitely impressed, but I'm also looking forward to what other offerings are going to come out in the future that really take advantage of the power out of the system. Because when the consoles initially come out, they release a few games that are kind of like headliners to sell along with the system, but it's going to take years for developers to really learn the hardware and make the most out of a system that is built to be in your living room for the next 6 to 7 years to come. And with the 8K capabilities and with 8K TVs becoming more accessible, 4K 120 and HDMI 2.1 being more accessible as well, then I feel like we're still in for a lot of great surprises in the future that we're not really able to experience at its full advantage right away. As for the console wars though, I haven't had a chance to test out the PS5, but I'm very excited for that. And in a lot of areas, these two consoles are very similar. And it's gonna take a bit of time for me to really decide which one is going to be the one I'm gonna use for the next couple of years to come. I'm gonna do a comparison if you guys wanna see that, but As of now, I can say that the 4K 60 gaming experience is incredible and I had a great time playing some games today. And I do believe the Xbox Series X as my first preview into the console of the future at the price point of $499 with great hardware and great capabilities has me very excited, and I think a lot of you are going to enjoy it when it does come out in about 5 days. But otherwise, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really did try to put a lot of effort into it and just change up the set for once because I feel like the occasion kind of warranted that. If you guys enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to the channel, drop a like, and follow me over on Instagram for behind the scenes, and I'll see you guys in the next video.